All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about the Phoenician horizon, which is a fascinating look at how we're using artificial intelligence to, well, literally chart a lost empire.
So here's the big question right off the bat. How do you even find a lost empire? I mean, when you think of empires, you probably picture massive stone ruins, right? Buried cities, giant walls. But what happens when an empire didn't really leave any of that behind? Where do you even start looking?
Well, the empire we're hunting for is that of the ancient Phoenicians. And here's the twist. Their empire wasn't really built on land. It was built on water. They had what's called a thalassocracy, which is just a cool way of saying an empire of the sea. For them, ocean currents were their highways.
Okay, so that brings us to the first real hurdle here, history's missing pages. We're going to dig into the massive challenge historians have faced for centuries, the problem of a liquid legacy. See, unlike the Romans with all their roads or the Egyptians with their pyramids, the Phoenicians are way harder to track. Their highways, they've just vanished into the water. The proof of their incredible trade network? It's scattered all over the bottom of the Mediterranean, or in these tiny disconnected bits and pieces that archaeologists find. You know, a great way to think about it is that the historical record we have is, and I'm quoting here, like fragmented maritime logs. Seriously, imagine trying to piece together all of today's global shipping routes with just a few torn pages from a captain's diary. That's the scale of the challenge we're dealing with.
So this all boils down to a key concept historians call archaeological gaps. It's basically a term for these massive holes in the story that stop us from seeing the full picture of just how influential and widespread the Phoenician civilization actually was.
But what if you could fill in those gaps? What if you could build some kind of high-tech time machine? Well, believe it or not, that's pretty much what researchers have done with an AI simulation.
And the whole approach is this brilliant mix of the ancient and the supermodern. You take this age-old problem, those fragmented records, and you throw this incredibly powerful modern solution at it. Deep-sea AI simulations that can juggle way more variables than any human ever could.
So how does this thing actually work? Well, first, you feed the AI a torrent of fragmented data. I mean everything. Ancient texts, known shipwreck locations, historical climate models, even data mapping the ocean floor. Then, the AI simulates the ancient Mediterranean, complete with its forgotten currents and weather patterns. From all that, it calculates the most probable, efficient, and safest routes a Phoenician ship would have taken. And finally, it visualizes that entire network.
Which, of course, brings us to the really exciting part, charting phantom routes. This is the big reveal. After all that processing, what did this AI actually discover hidden in the depths of history?
But what the AI gives us is so much more than just a bunch of lines on a map. It starts to reveal the profound difficulty of what these ancient sailors were accomplishing. It actually quantifies the danger.
And the specifics here are just fascinating. The AI dug up navigational dangers we had little appreciation for. We're talking about forgotten currents that could just pull a ship miles off course. Shifting thermoclines, these sharp boundaries between warm and cold water that would create totally unpredictable winds and choppy seas. The model showed entire trade corridors that were brutally treacherous.
So the conclusion is pretty clear. To not just survive these journeys, but to build an empire upon them required what the original source calls sheer navigational genius and grit. This AI proves the Phoenicians weren't just merchants, they were master oceanographers who understood complex sea dynamics centuries before modern science. It doesn't diminish their achievement, it magnifies it. And just picture it. They did all of this in their famous cedar-hulled vessels. These weren't massive modern container ships. They were wooden boats, powered by sail and oar, crossing a sea that was far from predictable.
So, why does all this matter? Why is charting an ancient map so important? Because, in doing so, we uncover the very engine of their empire.
Think of it this way. These routes weren't just for travel. They were the arteries of their sprawling, invisible empire. Through these sea lanes flowed goods, wealth, culture, and information, connecting dozens of cultures all across the Mediterranean.
I mean, their famous cedar wood from Lebanon wasn't just a commodity. It built the ships that gave them their naval dominance. Their legendary Tyrian purple dye was a priceless luxury good, creating immense wealth. And the silver they traded for, that funded the entire operation.
So you can really see the three pillars holding this empire up. You have the maritime trade itself, the incredible navigational skill of the sailors, and the highly valuable key commodities they controlled. Each one was absolutely essential.
Ultimately, what this all comes down to is a powerful idea. By using modern technology to bridge those ancient archaeological gaps, we can finally make the invisible visible. We can see the shape and structure of an empire that existed primarily on water.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question to ponder. If we can reconstruct the lost world of the Phoenicians from fragmented data, what other lost worlds, what other forgotten histories are just sitting there, waiting in the data for the right tools to bring them back to life?